Which are better, property or shares? Should you rent and then invest in the stock market or buy your own home? There's been a lot of videos on YouTube about this subject recently, and I feel like the subject is getting really confused and people don't know what to do anymore. My name's Justine, I'm a money coach and I help women become financially free and quit their jobs. A lot of the videos that are telling you that you should rent and invest in the stock market instead of buying your own home are not quite telling you the whole story. Basically, they're comparing apples with oranges. Let me try and break it down simply for you. If we just look at property and stocks as two different investments, and they're both great investments on their own, figures that they're looking at are usually based on Case-Shiller figures, which is 9.8% for the stock market on average over the long term, and about 4.3% for property. So it looks like an easy, simple comparison, right? One's higher than the other. Why not just buy shares instead? The trouble is the stock market figures take into account income from the stocks, so dividends reinvested, whereas the property figures only take into account growth. They don't take into account any income that you might generate from a property, such as rent. Basically, both property and shares are great investments over the long term. In fact, both of them are the only investments I've found that give you both growth, i.e. the market price goes up of either your stocks or your property, and income, whether that's in the form of dividends or rent. A lot of other investments don't give you those two things at once. They don't give you those two engines for making money. Have a look at this table. You can see on this table that things like cryptocurrency or gold are really only giving you growth when the price of that asset goes up. Whereas something like putting your money in the bank or in bonds, you're really only getting income. There's no growth. When you get your money back out of the bank, it hasn't grown any, you've just got some income. So that's why both stocks and property are really great long-term investments compared to other different types of investments that you could choose. However, when people are comparing property and shares, they often discount two very important elements. One, as I said, is rental income, which can make a big difference on your total property returns. And the second is leverage, or borrowing to invest. Now, most people, when they buy a home, they don't just buy it in cash. They buy it with often a 90% mortgage, 90% of the value of the property. The thing about leverage is that it can massively increase the return on your investment. Of course, it also increases risks, because if the market goes down, then your loss is also accentuated. Let me give you an example. Here is a case of Jack and Jill. Jack decides he wants to put 10,000 euros into a stock market investment. At the end of a year, the stock market goes up 10%. So Jack has made 1,000 euros profit. In comparison, Jill puts 10,000 euros into a property. She buys a flat worth 100,000, rents it out, and at the end of the year, her investment has also risen 10%. But instead of having made 1,000 euros, she's made 11. I started investing in the stock market when I was 20. And one of the reasons I did that is because I was moving country, I was moving state, I wasn't staying in the same place. So I didn't think property was an appropriate investment at that time, simply because I was moving around so much. And that's a great decision if you continue to keep saving and investing. I put my money into the stock market and also into mutual funds, which gave me exposure to the stock market. That also allowed me to build up a bigger deposit so that when I did buy my own home, I had a good deposit and I also had some money invested in the stock market, which I kept invested for the long term. However, one of the things I noticed was that a lot of my friends who'd started investing in property in their 20s, when I was in stocks, were richer than I was when we were in our late 20s and early 30s. And I couldn't quite figure this out at first, but after a while I realized it was because of the impact of leverage. By investing in property, they were able to create a much bigger portfolio in terms of the total worth compared to my struggling to save and invest with stocks. Once I started investing in property, I was able to speed up my wealth accumulation. So does all that mean you should just invest in property, it's the best, and forget stocks? Well, no, because I still have both and they're great investments for different reasons. Also, property is not for everyone. You can lose money in property just the same as you can lose money in the stock market. It's not about the asset class, it's about the person who's investing and whether they've built up their money muscles and know what they're doing. Also, a home is not the same as buying an investment property where you're getting rent. Now, I know lots of property investors who got their start in property investing by buying a house, say with 3 bedrooms, and then renting out a couple of rooms to their mates while they lived in it. So they got the advantage of having a property that they didn't have to pay rent on, but also starting to create an investment. And that's a great option if you're young and you are happy to live with other people. One of the biggest mistakes I see with people buying their own home is that they buy a McMansion or their dream home too early. They put all their money into buying this fantastic huge house, got nice furniture and renovations, and basically they're putting all their eggs in one basket. They've got no diversification, and if anything goes wrong, they can't pay their property taxes or somebody loses their job, suddenly all the money is tied up in this one asset and they've got no flexibility. As any farmer can tell you, one of the worst things you can do is be asset rich and cash poor. You've got this huge big asset, but you can't afford to eat. If you really want to buy your own home and you're happy to buy young and pay it off as soon as you can, that can be a great option. And I know a lot of people who've established their financial stability and their financial freedom at a young age because they made that decision and they were disciplined enough to pay off the mortgage early. The benefits of buying your own home or buying property, there's 5 main benefits that you get when you buy property. One is you've got more control. If you're investing in, say, Google stocks, you can't really control what the head of Google is going to do with that company. The head of that company could make a bad decision, which destroys your investment, and you've got absolutely no control over it. Whereas when you buy property, you have more control. Secondly, if you're buying your own home and then you decide to sell it for a profit, the profits on that gain are usually tax-free in most countries. So that's a good benefit. The other thing is, if you're clever and you buy well, you can add value to your investment. You can renovate it, you can improve it, you can extend it, you can do something that increases the value of that asset. Fourth, you can generate some income from that investment. If you rent out a room, if you buy a block of apartments and you just live in one of them, there are lots of different options and ways that you can draw an income. It could be an Airbnb even. And finally, yes, property and buying your own home is kind of like forced savings. So if you think you won't save otherwise, then buy a home. Of course, there's lots of different ways that you can improve a property investment, and I've got a whole course on that subject. So if you want to learn more about it, have a look in the description section of this video.